Welcome to the first Women in Batteries interview. Let's get started. So the format for today is we'll spend the first 10 minutes on our meet and greet segment, where you'll be randomly matched with a few new friends, as Yen mentioned. And then we'll hear from our incredible guest, Dee Strand, the CSO of Wildcat Technologies. We'll have a main interview portion and then some time for your questions that you can ask Dee. We'll finish up with a few announcements where you'll get to hear about jobs and other opportunities, followed by some more open networking. Before we start with our meet and greet, I'd like to introduce to you all the new Women in Batteries project by Volta Foundation. The project is created to empower women in the battery industry and create positive change. Our goal for the interview series is to highlight role models in the industry and also, most importantly, create a community of women leaders, and that's all of you here. So it's really important that at the end of this meeting, not only have you learned something from Dee, but you've also made a lot of new friends and expanded your network. So I encourage you all to stay till the end of the event to further connect with others. Women in Batteries is one of the 14 projects hosted by Volta Foundation. We are a nonprofit supporting the growth of the battery industry. The foundation hosts a large number of events all over the world, so like in US, Europe, China, and even India, as well as a large portfolio of publications such as Battery Bits, Battery Report, This Week in Batteries, and so on. Everything we do is open access, and we're really proud of that. And everything is dedicated to helping individuals like you advance in your career. Our projects are maintained and organized by this amazing team of Volta staff, both volunteers and full-time members, and each person on here is just a rock star. And we are supported by our partners and member companies, so thank you so much to these organizations for helping make all of this work possible. So that leads us to our first segment, the meet and greet. The event is designed around community building. So in that spirit, you're highly encouraged to use the chat feature in Zoom to reach out to individuals and add each other on LinkedIn. In a minute, you'll be automatically moved to a small breakout room of about 4 people where you'll be randomly matched with a few new friends. So please get ready to unmute and share a little bit about yourself to your new battery friends. So each segment will last about 5 minutes. We'll have 2 of them, and I'm just creating the breakout rooms right now. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here, and welcome anyone new. I'm finally excited to introduce to you all our guest speaker, Dr. Dee Strand. Yen is Dee's video pinned, making sure that we can see, everyone can see Dee.
Got it.
It is?
I think so on my screen.
Add pin. Just a second, everyone. Okay, how's that?
I see me.
Perfect. Yeah, I think it happened. Okay, good. So Dee, I'm just going to give a brief introduction of you to everyone, and we'll get started with the interview. So Dr. Dee Strand is the Chief Scientific Officer at Wildcat Discovery Technologies. She's a renowned expert in materials research with over 2 decades of experience in energy storage. Her key achievements include leading Dow Energy Materials, spearheading research programs, and conducting patent analysis. Dee's Ph.D. in Analytical Chemistry focused on polymeric solutions, and in her current role, she accelerates product development for lithium-ion batteries, serving clients ranging from material suppliers to automotive OEMs. Thank you so much for being here, Dee. How are you feeling? What is your state of charge today?
My state of charge is pretty good. So thank you for inviting me. I didn't know how it was going to be, being the first one in your series, but I'm looking forward to the other ones you're going to hold.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we're so excited for you to be our very first speaker. So can you tell us a little bit about your role at Wildcat, your background, and what brought you to batteries?
Sure. So my role at Wildcat is the Chief Scientific Officer. And I will say, in a smaller company, your role is often changing. When I started here 10 years ago, we were only about 25 or 30 people. And so a company of that size, means you're doing a certain set of activities, you're really participating in the technical projects. I even ran a few technical projects myself, and helping set the strategy. But as we have grown over the years to 140 people, sometimes I don't get to do as much science as I might like. But we're always learning in our careers. And I think we're looking at doing some manufacturing, so that's an opportunity to learn. But again, my role is more about helping set strategy and from technical direction, making sure that our projects are based on sound science, and really getting to work with such a wonderful set of people here at Wildcat. We got a great technical team.
Yeah, it's great to see some of your team members here. For those who don't know, maybe you can give an example of some of the major projects that Wildcat is working on, or some of the ones you're working on at Wildcat.
Sure. So a key activity at Wildcat has been a focus on cathode materials. And we've been working on a new novel cathode material. It's called a disordered rock salt. So unlike a lot of the materials used today, like NMC, which is a nice ordered layered material, a disordered rock salt is just what it says, it's disordered. So your lithium moves a little bit differently, but the advantage is you can have very high energy density. It's a very stable material. And so that's and also you have a very wide compositional space. So you can get away from, critical minerals like nickel and cobalt and work with more cheap and abundant materials. And so that's one project we're particularly excited about.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And what led you to this career? How did you join batteries?
Well, that's kind of a long, meandering path. So I've always been interested in science, as a kid. My dad was a scientist, and I like solving puzzles. And so, as I went through school, I majored in chemistry, because you can do a lot of things with a chemistry major. You can think about med school, you can think about an R&D career. So it doesn't limit you in any way, except you're not an engineer. I'm reminded of that a lot. But when I got done with grad school, I was fortunate enough to go work for Dow Chemical. Great place to work, cutting edge research in a lot of different areas. And I worked in the analytical lab for over 15 years. And if you're an analytical chemist, I mean, what you're really doing is solving puzzles. Why does this not work? Why did this batch not work the same as the last batch? Or what did we make in our R&D? And how do we characterize it? So it's a lot more than just running samples. It's really solving problems. And I loved it there. But change is always good. So I got opportunities to go to the ventures group there, where we looked at new opportunities for Dow, and lithium-ion batteries was one of them. And there's a few things that are better puzzles than lithium-ion batteries. I mean, there are still things about the lithium-ion batteries that the industry does not understand completely, like the SEI layer and so forth. And so I was naturally drawn to that. And then I was fortunate enough to work on a project with Wildcat when I was at Dow, and love this company. It's all about high throughput research and solving good puzzles. So I came here.
That's wonderful. And I know you do, as you said, a variety of roles in your job, from very technical projects to doing events like this, where you speak to others about some of the projects that Wildcat and you are working on. What is your favorite part of your job right now?
It's always interacting with our team here at Wildcat. We got great scientists. We've got a lot more great scientists because we've grown a lot recently. So, I need to make more of an effort, because I really like it, to spend time with them, to understand their new ideas, and to make sure that we hear those new ideas. Sometimes as companies grow, voices can get drowned out. And you can ask people here at Wildcat and new employees when we meet, it's like, I want to hear your voice. We hired you for a reason. we hired you. You come from a different group than a research group than many others in our company. So speak up, let me hear you. And, I really just like hearing about science, talking about science.
Wonderful. And that kind of is a good segue to talking about why we're here today. So now we're going to talk about women in the field, and part of it's going to be giving advice, such as speaking up. So let's start off with talking about where we see women in the battery ecosystem. So we have different avenues. We have academia, industry, finance, policy. So Dee, from your perspective, where are we most successful? And are there places where women are less visible?
Yeah, so these are my personal observations. I don't have a lot of statistics or anything, but when I go to conferences, I see really fabulous researchers who are women speaking. Esther Takeuchi, Claire Gray, Shirley Mang. Just I don't mean to leave some other fabulous women out, but I think academia has done pretty well on batteries and in getting those women scientists heard. I mean, they're very prominent in the field. I think the DOE has done a better job recently adding women into leadership positions in EERE, VTO, and I'm really happy to see that. That's great, but we still need kind of maybe younger women filling the pipeline in the DOE funded programs. I did a quick peek on the 2023 annual merit review, and only about 15% of the PIs that presented were women. There were still a lot of women included on the teams. I was glad to see that. So I think that will change with time, but I really appreciate the effort that DOE is making there. Industry. So in the automotive companies, again, the bigger companies, I think, do a great job. They've got broader recruitment efforts. Like Yen was saying, I think there's not enough critical mass to feel like maybe there's a community of women at those companies. So I think that's all good. Maybe where we don't see them as much is in smaller companies, because they don't have maybe that broad of a recruitment effort, because they are small. If you're a company of 20 people and you don't have any women, and you interview a woman, it might be a little intimidating to join that company. And
Definitely.
So I think that can be a problem. And then, maybe in the leaderships of the smaller companies, you don't see too many women CEOs or CTOs, CSOs in, a lot of the startups in the battery world.
Mm-hmm. And for those startups that maybe don't have as wide of a reach, don't have that many resources, could you give any suggestions as to how they could reach women, even with the lack of resources and time?
Yeah, I mean, that's just good recruiting, regardless of, what demographic you're trying to attract. But certainly, reaching out to maybe the women professors that are well known in the battery field. Perhaps they have a higher percentage of women in their groups because they are a good role model. Reaching out to the national labs and the DOE funded efforts, again, because you can they've, again, as I said, improved their recruiting efforts for women and getting more women engaged in battery research. So I would say do a very targeted recruiting. And again, if you're a small company and you don't have any women on staff, well, you got to start somewhere. So let's get one hired, and then perhaps more will follow.
Mm-hmm. And for those of us who are maybe thinking of joining smaller companies with the majority of the workforce being men, you've worked at a small company. So can you give some words of encouragement so women don't feel as apprehensive of joining those smaller companies? And there are lots of benefits to joining a startup.
Yeah, so I very much like this question, and I get asked this a lot about small companies versus big companies, like when I'm interviewing people and so forth. And I think the key thing to remember is that when you join a smallish company, your opportunity to have impact is huge. Not that you can't have impact at a Dow chemical company, but it's a lot harder to move the needle. It's a lot harder to be well known in the entire company. You probably never will be. But if you go to a company that's, 100 people or less, everyone's going to know you and everyone's going to know your contributions. And that is a real opportunity. So think of it that way when you're looking at, choices on jobs.
I definitely agree, especially if we look at the type of startups we have in Europe and the US. Everyone's so innovative. So if you join a smaller company, you have the potential to truly create change in the industry. Yeah, so on that topic, generally, how do you think we can collectively support women and young professionals within the battery industry?
Yeah, so, and I mean, certainly I can speak to batteries, but this is probably true everywhere in any industry. And I like to break it down into terms of, okay, so who am I? Who are you? What role do you play in your company? And how can you support women? So, as a manager, I think managers want to give maybe women more opportunities. And just remember that not all opportunities are created equal. So, in my past, I have observed managers very well intended wanting to give women in their groups kind of more visibility. They call it leadership opportunities, but some of those opportunities aren't really related to science or research or their core job functions. They might be more social, they might be more administrative. And that's great if a woman wants that. But if you want to advance your technical career, if you do those things, if you take those opportunities, know that that's going to take away time that you could spend on doing your research or doing your technical project. So I think that has to be a conversation between a manager and their direct report as to what opportunities really advance their careers in the way that the woman wants it to be advanced. I mean, if there's sometimes a lot of pressure, and I felt it at times at Dow to become a manager, and so you will be presented with opportunities that show off your management styles. And if you want to really stay technical, remain being a scientist, and trust me, we need women to do that. You sometimes have to turn down those opportunities and look for better ones. For coworkers and peers, I have to talk about the "what about me" syndrome. I like to use examples from my kids. I was lucky enough to get a pair of twins in my life, and they were just barely talking. They were like 2 years old, and if you were to praise one of them or to give one of them a small reward, almost instantaneously, the other one would say, "What about me?" And I think this is human nature. I'm not a psychologist, but I mean, these were young enough kids. They hadn't, been ingrained in society that much. It's human nature that when our coworkers get a promotion, they get an award, that we think about ourselves first. We think, why didn't I get that? And we really have to consciously push that down and just be happy for that other person. Don't think about, oh, they got that because they're a woman. They got that because XYZ. Just be happy for that person. If you want to play the "what about me" game, change it to the, hey, what can I do? And you can have that conversation with your supervisor. What can I do towards my next promotion? And really keep that independent of what your coworkers are doing, because it only makes people feel bad and it destroys teamwork. And I don't think any of us want that. But I believe the "what about me" syndrome happens a lot in the workplace. I felt that at times. And just consciously suppress it whenever you feel that. I
Yeah,
try to teach that to my kids too.
especially if we are a woman, one of the few women in the company, and we see another woman succeed, it's really important to uplift each other and encourage each other. And I guess a point for me is the battery industry is growing so rapidly. So much money has been invested in it. So I think there is room for everyone to grow.
That's right. And but not everyone's going to grow at the same rate or in the same, kind of, all careers are meandering paths, and you have to remember that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I thought your very first point was very interesting about how I think women are presented many leadership opportunities because they're women, for example. And I think the point you were making, just to nail it home, is it's important to think of your career journey holistically. Where do you want to be? What kind of work you want to do? And to have an open conversation with your manager or supervisor.
Yep, that's right. And hopefully you have a manager that you can talk to. If you can't, find a mentor that you can talk to openly, and that will help a lot.
Yeah, and I think my experience in the battery space is I think everyone is so kind and open. So as long as you try to speak up and have a good relationship with your manager, I'm sure most of them are very open to it and happy about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's segue to the next question a bit more broadly. What might early career professionals do better when entering the battery industry?
Be patient. Again, you're at the start of your career, maybe in the first 5 years. It's not all about promotions and raises, and we focus way too much on that. I know money's important. That's why we're working. But what you really want to focus on is having impact wherever you are. Being a good team player. Do the folks around you want to work with you? And building your reputation as a scientist or engineer or whatever your job is, by having a logical thought process, communicating well, drawing good conclusions in your work. Do focus on those things early in your career. The promotions, the raises, they're going to come. Some of that depends a lot on the particular company you work for, the cadence that they do it, the financial means that the company has to give you those rewards. But this is when, your reputation as a professional, again, scientist, engineer starts. So get off to a strong start and worry the most about that rather than promotions. So be patient on the promotions, work hard on the reputation.
And can you give us any examples of how you dealt with that in your career as you progressed?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's easy to say that the money isn't that important at times in your life, but it isn't the most important thing. I don't think that I would never hold a job where I was unhappy. You spend, a good part of your life at work. So you better be doing something that you like and makes you feel good. And if that pays and, moves your career along, that's great. But even if it doesn't, even if you don't get the promotions that you think you might want, are you liking what you do? Do you want to be there every day? These are the questions that I ask myself frequently. And the answer has always been yes. I've always liked what I do. And, that keeps me working, keeps me happy, but it also is a wonderful kind of example. I have 3 kids, and, they're early in their careers. And, one of the things that they if you go ask any of them, they will always tell you that I like what I do, and I tell them that I like what I do. And so if you're a woman working in science or engineering or batteries, talk to young people, tell them how much you like what you do there, get them excited about it. Don't give the impression that, you don't like research or batteries are too hard, but give them the impression, the truth, that you really like what you do, this is a great field to be in.
Definitely. Yeah, I was going to ask, what can we do to increase the number of women entering batteries? And I think that's one part of it, is all of us here being excited about what we do. That means enjoying our work, working where we're happy, and spreading the positive message.
Yep, I think that all of that's important, and especially to, young girls, high school women, college women. So if you have an opportunity to, throughout my career, especially younger, I was always active in the American Chemical Society local section. I was the chair one year, and we reached out to local middle schools with a tutoring program. We got a grant to pay people, college students, to tutor them in STEM areas. So, if you have the luxury of time to do things like that, I recommend that you do it, because we won't get young people excited about these areas unless they see real examples of women in these fields.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this can even start here with all of us here connecting with each other and uplifting each other as we find the best place for us in this industry as well. Yeah. And I had a follow-up question regarding your point on patience. So one part of patience is if you're working at a company you enjoy, sticking it out for the long haul, instead of, a lot of young people, for a variety of reasons, switch jobs pretty easily nowadays. So if you are following, that lesson of patience, how can you ensure that at your current company you get the opportunities that you want and you follow the path that you want?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think, the times are a little different than when I was early in my career. It wasn't as easy to move. We didn't have LinkedIn. We didn't have these tools. There weren't so many recruiters and so forth.
Yeah.
So I think, again, I'm going to share, think about some of the newer employees at Wildcat. And I've seen some of them move on. And I think the key is to have a good relationship with your supervisor and or a good mentor at the company that can ensure that you can see what your future would be. The opportunity, especially at smaller companies, to take on a new role or additional responsibilities might not be there right at that moment. But if they don't know that that's what you're looking for, then they can't think of you when the opportunity arises. They can't help you prepare for that larger role or to take on the additional responsibilities. And so it's really finding a mentor or a supervisor that you feel totally comfortable talking to. That I think that's less common today. I'm just generalizing. But I was very fortunate in my career, early career, to have supervisors that, I could be pretty blunt with. Here's what I like about my job. Here's what I really don't like about my job. Let's try to balance it and work together to ensure that, my trajectory is what I want it to be.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And even if you don't find someone like that at your current company, whether because you're in a very small project or a small team, I think even going up to leaders you look up to, if you're at a conference, you can approach Dee, have a quick chat with her, and get some advice from women who've been in the industry for a long time. I think that's really helpful as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think Yen, that's how I met Yen. He reminded me.
Yeah, Yen is a very big fan of you.
I was very bold. When I was still in school, I met Dee at a conference and introduced myself.
There you go. We can all do that.
Yep.
And Dee was very, very nice. So I encouraged the 100+ people in this room to all say hi to her at the next conference.
We're not accountable for all the messages you get after this talk.
It's all good.
Well, thank you very much, Dee, for that insightful discussion. Before we switch to Q&A from our audience, I'd like to do just a quick, fun lightning round question segment to answer some fun questions for our audience to get to know you better. So are you ready?
Sure.
All right. What's your favorite battery cell chemistry?
Lithium manganese iron phosphate. I started my career in batteries with that, and funny enough, it's come around full circle.
That's great. If you could design a new type of battery cell, what would it be like?
Okay, so I don't know that this is new, and this is hypothetical.
Mhm.
So if I could wave a magic wand and make all the technical problems go away, I mean, air batteries are where it would be. You don't need a cathode. You get a very high energy density. You're not paying for a cathode. That's worked out well in the hearing aid market. But however, for rechargeable batteries, the technical barriers to overcome there are still huge. So that's a magic wand kind of question.
Do you think it's possible?
I don't know.
Okay, let's hope so. Maybe in the future.
Yeah.
Do you have any book recommendations for us?
Okay, so I'm assuming you're talking about batteries. Otherwise, I do like the three body problem. But for batteries, I didn't take classes in batteries, lithium-ion batteries. I'm too old for that. So I'm sort of self-taught, and a lot of experts in the industry were kind enough to spend time with me. But you should read the classic review articles. Kang Zhu on electrolytes. I think he has a book now. Stan Whittingham on cathodes. And then, of course, the ever-present battery handbook. That's what I started with.
Yeah, that's a good point, especially for those of us here who don't come from a technical background. I think note all of that down. It's a good way to get started and educate yourself. All right, next question. What's the most promising emerging battery technology that you've come across recently?
Okay, so I have two answers for this. The first is Wildcat's disordered rock salt cathodes. These are really novel in terms of the energy densities you can achieve, in terms of the fact that you can get rid of cobalt and nickel, and you just have this large compositional space. The other one is not necessarily new in the sense of battery chemistry, but I'm really excited about the resurgence of lithium iron phosphate in the industry. Very abundant, iron material. It's low cost, it's safe. And really the innovation is about designing the cells, the cell to pack technology, all of that, pack, I don't think they use modules anymore, engineering that helps mitigate the lower energy density of the lithium iron phosphate. But I don't think anyone saw that coming a few years ago. So that's quite exciting. And then, of course, if you have lithium iron phosphate, it's not a stretch to go to lithium manganese iron phosphate, which is my favorite battery chemistry.
Yeah, I think it's interesting in the battery industry to see all these chemistries make a comeback. It means we've improved a lot, and yeah. All right, if you were a battery cell, what special performance attribute would you have?
Okay. Well, I don't think I'm the smartest or most energetic, but I'm pretty dependable. I'm pretty persistent, and I work hard. So I'd say cycle life.
Awesome, cycle life. Oh, that's great. Okay, those are all the lightning round questions. Before we go to Q&A, Dee, any last words?
No, well, maybe yes. I guess, again, I don't care where you are, who you are, but you don't have to be a woman to support women. So if you're a guy out there, please try to support your female coworkers. And remember that, it's different. It's different for us. It's different because there are fewer of us. So we're always feeling that. I mean, I grew up with that. I was, the only girl in my high school physics and calculus class, and some of you may have felt that in your past and others haven't. So go easy on, the criticism, go easy on they got that because it's a woman and the what about me syndrome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. And it's wonderful because I see some men in the room supporting all of us. So yeah, that's wonderful to see. All right. We have 7 minutes left for the Q&A. So everyone who has a question for Dee, just use the raise your hand function, and then I'll call on you to ask your questions. Okay, Amy, I see you first.
Yeah. Hi, Dee. Thank you for all the feedback today. Super helpful. For those of us who were not traditionally trained in batteries, you already mentioned some of those publications, but are you aware of any kind of training courses? Like I did the battery MBA through Battery Associates, and looking at taking the one of the short courses from the BIC. But are there other kind of educational sources to help support that kind of technical knowledge base?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know that there's anything there's not a good infrastructure, and we need to build that infrastructure in the US or North America. I do a lot of tutorials at conferences, so and so do others. So that is one place that you can do that, and those are, at least the ones that I participated in, are at a level for a beginner, and are in a pretty friendly environment to ask questions that you might be intimidated asking at a full conference presentation. You do, of course, have to pay for those, so that's the downside. But the other place that I learned a lot, when the first year I was in batteries, I went to the DOE annual merit review, and also I found that to be a good learning environment, because there's a very prescribed format for each presentation, where they give the background and so forth, and they have these I forget what they call them, but there are groups of projects related to, say, silicon anodes or solid state electrolytes, and I actually have learned a lot from those presentations over the years. That one's free, I think. So
great. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Dee. Anyone else? I see Faiza has her hand up.
Thank you. Thank you for the very nice presentation. It's really interesting. And I wanted to ask the one question from the guest. Like you talked about, one of the recent thing that attracted you is the lithium iron phosphate for the batteries research. So isn't it like not very environment friendly, and it's a bit, expensive compared to other material that is being used right now?
So actually, lithium iron phosphate is relatively inexpensive compared to, say, a high nickel NMC material.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So it is cheaper.
But not very environment friendly.
Well, that depends on how you make it. So if you're speaking to, there are methods to make lithium iron phosphate where there's a lot of waste product that just gets landfilled. But there are other processes that you can use to make lithium iron phosphate where the waste materials or byproducts can be recycled into things like sulfuric acid and ammonia. And that's where I think the US can be innovative in ensuring that the processes that we use to manufacture cathode materials in North America don't generate all those waste products. But I will say that the NMC production process has a lot of the similar waste products. So it's not just lithium iron phosphate.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm sorry for the confusion. I confused it with oxide when I said expansive, because I'm working on laminated sensors. So like we're going to use this material for something.
It's all good.
Great question. All right. Next one I see is, sorry, I'm going to butcher your name here. Cowther?
Hi, actually you didn't. It's so correct.
Oh, great.
And I'm happy. So thanks, Steve, for the nice talk and the nice recommendations. you've talked about your kids and how you went through your role. And now, like, just a question just came in my mind is, how do you succeed to manage both? I mean, making kids and great kids, 3 kids, I would say, and keeping the same role and improving your role in industry or whatever. What can you give us advice for this?
Yeah, so I have 3 kids. My husband is a chemical engineer, so he's worked throughout my career. So we were busy, and I guess so. First of all, I think we have to ensure that we think about this as, both men and women's issues. Often it gets described as a women's issue. How do you manage kids and work at the same time? And so the first thing we all need to do is remember that there is a partner there. Hopefully, I mean, I know that single moms are out there, and it becomes even harder. Fortunately, I had a good partner. But I would say that this speaks to work-life balance, and work-life balance differs throughout your career. There's no right answer. So it depends where you are. So at times you're going to be heavy on the work. So in grad school, that's going to be heavy on the work, because wow, what an opportunity you have to do research with great professors at great universities. You're going to get a Ph.D. And the more you put in there, that pays off the rest of your career. You start your early career, that's often where kids come along, and maybe life has to take the weight a little bit more then. But I think right now employers are probably a lot more open than they were when I was having my kids, and I don't have the best advice for how to manage that these days. I hear people have trouble with daycare. I know COVID was a huge interruption because there wasn't daycare and there wasn't school, but hopefully we're past that. So, I mean, I have to be very blunt here. I mean, we paid a lot of people. We had nannies, we had drivers throughout school, and that was expensive. And then we couldn't do other things that we wanted to do. We couldn't take expensive vacations. We couldn't buy fancy stuff. Because that's how we made our work-life balance work out for us. If you can't afford to do that, then I think you have to be very careful and evaluate the opportunities you have at work. So can I take that extra project that my supervisor wants me to do? And if you can't take it and know that you're going to do a good job, and you're not going to fall apart at home, I mean, don't take it. Tell them that you want to wait 1 year. Be patient.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point, Dee. Thank you. Angela, Tim, and Han, I see your questions. I think Dee can stay for a little bit, but I'm just going to wrap up real quick because I want to mention some action items before some people have to go. So first, thank you so much, Dee, for taking the time to share your insights and to be our very first speaker in Women in Batteries. Your accomplishments in the space are simply incredible, and I think all of us here can say that we feel so empowered by your words and empowered to pursue a career in batteries. So thank you so much.
Sure.
A couple of action items before we continue with questions and networking. I'd like to invite everyone to our next interview event in November. We're going to be interviewing Sarah, the CSO of Livent, and Yen is going to post the link in the chat right now. So please feel free to RSVP and to share that link with your friends if you enjoyed this event. So Yen's going to post that. And then also our battery career fair is coming up in October. Volta does a great job of inviting very influential companies who are looking for talent in this space. So you'll get a chance to connect with them, see what opportunities are out there. So follow the link in the chat to register. Yen is also going to post that now. So for those of you who have to go, thank you very much for attending the launch of our Women in Batteries interview series. And I hope to see you all at the next one. So yeah, Dee, if you can stay, it'd be great.
Sure.
If you can answer those questions. And then the rest of the event, all of us can network here together. Yeah, great. All right. I think, Han, I saw you first.
Thank you. Hi, Dee.
Hi.
It's really exciting to, the interview. Wow. I feel great encouraged. I have a question. Since I'm a PhD candidate majoring chemistry and focusing on nickel-rich cathode, I want to know, will you consider nickel-rich cathode in the future? I mean, can there be a production line from the precursor co-precipitation to the material synthesis and the recycling through the wet method, and then recycle it using co-precipitation again? Do you think there will be a production line in America in the future?
Oh yes, I think so. I mean some of the companies that got funded in the last round of large grants from the IRA are planning on doing that. So yes, I think that will happen. I think, there's been enough announcements for gigafactories that are going to come, are under construction in the US and Canada using NMC chemistries. So yes, they're definitely that has to happen.
Is there a chance to join you in Wildcat to do nickel-rich cathode research, or I need to change my research focus to join you?
We consider all applicants.
Thank you. Okay. Hope one day. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
Tim?
Hey Dee, thanks so much for coming to speak with us today. This is Tim Suin from Volta Foundation and Form Energy. I wanted to ask, you've spoken a little bit about the importance of having good mentors and stuff, but I've found it tricky, personally at least, to find good mentors and to tell if somebody will be a good mentor or not. So I wanted to ask if you have some strategies for who to talk to, maybe within your company and outside as well. Thanks.
Yeah, so that is a really good question. Mentorship. So like you, I've had experiences where it's not that it didn't go well, it just wasn't helpful. And in general, again, I'm generalizing, my experience is assigned mentors when you don't know each other very well don't work. It has to develop naturally. Your supervisor can be a mentor. It can be somebody else in your group. It can be someone outside your group. It works best if they're in your organization though, because they know the culture of that organization. So keep trying, go talk to people who've been at wherever you're at for 10 years, if they're there, and, ask them questions and see who clicks. And then, your mentor owes you some things. If they agree to be a mentor, they have to, so first of all, you have to be very open with them, but they have to also be very open and honest with you. If you have some kind of performance issue that needs to be improved, they need to feel comfortable enough with you to tell you that and to help you fix it. If your performance is fine and you just want to know how you can be better, how you can have more impact, well, that's a little bit easier to hear. But they actually have to listen to you and come up with opportunities, help you create opportunities. If I'm not your supervisor, I can't necessarily create an opportunity for you. But if I'm your mentor, I can give you some advice on how to create opportunities for yourself. So who should you go talk to? What skills should you gain? If you're at a bigger company and even at smaller companies, how do you get at least peripherally involved in something maybe outside of your normal day-to-day responsibilities, so that you can be considered for new opportunities? But they owe you that. And if they're not doing that, if it's just we're going to go to lunch once a month and then forget about each other until the next lunch, then that's not a mentor. So you just have to keep sort of turning over rocks to find that person that is actually going to spend the time to help you.
Wow, thanks so much. Can I ask a quick follow-up? Do you typically ask them formally if they want to be your mentor, or is it just a relationship that develops over time?
It's just a relationship that develops over time. Sometimes I mean, you can bring it up, but often when people hear the word mentor, they think about, oh man, I got assigned a mentor when I first started, and we had lunch once a month and nothing ever happened. So mentorship's great. Sometimes the word itself can bring back some memories of not being very helpful. So I would let it develop naturally.
That's amazing. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Thank you, Dee. Angela?
Yeah, thanks so much for a great talk. I'm currently a postdoc working at an institute in Germany, and I actually had a question. You talked a lot about kind of things people can do as women or things people can do as men to kind of help women kind of further their careers and things. Have you seen anything in your career that like systemically you feel has changed that is like pointing towards a better future, an easier future for women in the field, kind of, yeah, either on the academia side or in industry?
Yeah, I mean, the whole premise of this is we don't have enough women in batteries, but over the course of my career, there's a lot more women. I work with a lot more women now than I did when I first started. So that's been a good trend. It's still not where it should be. But having more women to begin with means there's more women management. There's more women at higher levels. Also a helpful thing as long as we support each other. Trend wise, I mean, I think there's also more of a expectation on the family and the life side that your partner has to help you. It's not if you choose to have children, it's not all on the woman. And that's a big change from when I was growing up. So that's what I would point to.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Great. Thank you very much, Dee.
Sure.
If we don't have any more questions, I think, yeah, we're all good. Thank you so much for joining us, Dee. And everyone, feel free to stay and network for a few more minutes to connect and grow your network and get to know each other. We'll keep the room open for a little while longer.
And I have to pop off for a meeting, but I'd like to thank Volta for this opportunity, and kudos to them for this series of webinars, and also for one of the coolest acronyms that I've seen, JEDI. So anyway,
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank
Bye.
you.